All right, what do we got here? 7:06. So at this point in time, we'll begin. Larry probably will join us at some point. Officially opening now the December 16, 2020 Planning Board meeting, Town of Southampton. And once again, Keith Locke, one of our board members, will not be present tonight. This meeting is also recorded on channel 191 on Charter. First order of business is a building permit that was submitted by Tom Fuller, Lot 6, Fitch Farm Way. And I had sent over to you a couple, not too long ago, maybe an hour ago, just so you could see his plot plan, but there's not going to be any stormwater involved on this because naturally Fitch Farm Way has already got their own stormwater system in place. His lot 6, measures 40,253 square feet, and his house is only going to be consisting of like a third of that. So he sent most of this stuff via email to all the town departments because, like, John, do you know, is Ron Lauren back in the office these days?
I believe so. I just talked to him on Monday.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe this guy, because he couldn't get into town hall, he was having some trouble getting signatures, so he sent all the departments the sign-off sheet. So does anybody have any questions about this building permit?
Nope.
Paul? Cindy? Dan? Hearing none, could I have a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. Cindy?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Paul? Aye. 4-0-0. Thank you. Now, on the same vein, it's this building permit we just approved was for lot 6, and at such time I had a conversation with Martha Leamy in the assessor's office a couple of weeks ago, too, as a matter of fact. For some reason or other, I remember that we assigned street numbers to this, but I failed, I think, to send them over to the assessor's office. They're on the plans that are in town hall that I can't get to, and the Mylar. So I thought I would just reiterate, because there's only 9 lots there, and my recollection, going up the right-hand side, starting with the left-hand side of going into Fitch Farm Way, lot 1 would be number 1. Lot 2 would be number 3. Lot 3 would be number 5. Lot 4 would be number 7, and lot would be not lot 7. Lot 5 would be number 2, or lot 6 would be number 2. Lot 7 number 4. Lot 8 number 6, and lot 9 would be number 8. So I'm just going to redo this and send it over to Martha, because as Mr. Fuller said, that the Board of Health was looking for an address and it wasn't lot 6. They're looking for actual street numbers. So I'll get that squared away and send those street numbers over. And I'll have to look at Gill Farm at some point as well to make sure that that was assigned. Something tells me that probably didn't do that either. And the reason I think that happens, to be quite honest with you, it's my fault. The subdivision comes in and we approve those plans, and if we don't remember to do the street addresses. It's not like when we get an A&R, we get an A&R plan, we do it. But the subdivision plans are several copies of the plan, and I failed to just take one of those sheets and send it over to the assessor's office with the street numbers on it. If it's on there, it's in the entire set of plans, which is up in the planning board files. So if you don't have any questions about that or any, I'm just going to reassign them and get them over to Martha so she can, because I guess from what Ryan told me, I think most of all of those lots are sold now.
So it's no change, you're just documenting it basically, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Okay, is Larry's nowhere to be found here. I sent him over the information. Let me see if he texted me at all. Unless he was going to jump on here at some point. Well, anyway, we'll continue on with the next agenda. Before I get to the minutes, I think you all again saw the email from John Furman, our consultant on the Gill Farm project that, as far as you know, Paul, there was no paving done there. They did abide by the decision not to go any further.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. The only reason I say that is because the weather turned around pretty decent on Friday after all, and I wondered if there was any second thoughts or they went by his opinion and that was it. So
I think it was too risky for them to start.
Yeah.
And then potentially not do it.
All right, so let me just ask you this, Paul, because it's been a while. Can they sell lots there and construct on them even with no sub-base on? Say, for instance, they've got the lots sold. Can they start to build on them without any roadway sub-base?
I don't see why not. I think it's a matter of them having proper, erosion control measures, given that there's going to be additional traffic on the roadway and coming in and out, depending on what's there. So I don't see why.
So in other words,
well,
they'll probably put that base down as soon as they can in the spring, and then but it still will have to weather again a winter, correct?
Yeah, I guess my only question is going back to, did they bond any
Yep.
Did they bond it, or did they have any covenants for lots?
They put up covenants.
So that's a discussion that I think we need to have.
Down the road?
Yeah, I mean, because if they put up covenants, and maybe Larry can speak better to this than me, but my guess is, what's the guarantee, or what's the town's skin in the game if they sell all these lots and they walk, right? We no longer have the leverage, right?
Well, we could probably hold them up from. Couldn't we hold one?
The thing is, the lots are not. The thing about the project is the lots are not linked to the road, right? So, let's say the developer dissolves for some reason, and we are holding the lots. Larry's here. He could probably talk about this better, articulate this better than my garbled interpretation. But if one of the lots, if he sells all the lots and there's no covenant, then what's our bond? I mean, how do we hold the developer's feet to the fire? Now we're potentially stuck building a road that hasn't been, developed, right? And the lots are all.
Yeah, Larry, we're just talking. Are you there? You're muted.
You're unmuted now.
Okay.
There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me
Okay.
now?
Good. We
So
had
you
a, we had a question arise here.
Okay.
You remember the Gill Farm subdivision off of Pequot Road?
Oh, I'm all right.
What's that?
Okay, yes.
All right, so question is,
Yes, I do.
they couldn't make the deadline to put the sub base down in the subdivision, so they got to wait till spring now, and then the road still has to weather a winter in 2021. And
Correct.
I was asking, and Paul was discussing it also. If they have lots up for covenants, how do we prevent them from selling them all? So we, because we have to wait for that final coat to go on, which won't be probably till 2022.
There are a couple of issues. First of all, lots under covenant are not supposed to be sold until the planning board releases them for sale.
They have to be released first. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
However, I know of a number of circumstances where a lawyer doing the title search missed the covenant and parcels, in fact, did get sold. The other problem with covenants are you cannot convert a lot under a covenant to cash to finish the work. All you can do is basically hold that lot hostage until somebody who owns it, which would probably end up being the bank at that point, comes up and steps up and finishes the work. Covenants are like one of the worst forms of performance guarantee you can use or have with a subdivision. And which is why in a subdivision, the developer gets the first choice of what kind of performance guarantee they want to put up. And sometimes they will put up a covenant. And you really don't have any choice in that. You have to accept that. However, when they come in and they start asking for lots to be released, it's at that point that you should step in and say, okay, we want to switch from a covenant to a letter of credit or something like that. Something that actually, gives you the cash in hand to finish the work if in fact the developer doesn't. And a covenant does not give you.
Gotcha. Thank you. Another question.
Yep.
Brian Gielaher on Hallen Way that has been lingering on for many, many years. He got an extension sometime back when I think it was after 2008 or 9, they had an extension on construction because the bottom fell out of the market, whatever.
Sure.
But he has not brought the Hallen Way to the town yet for approval, or this board for that matter. Well, he's ready to do so now. And the old company, the company he had the bond with, he no longer wants to do business with, and it was for $50,000. And he's got a couple of minor things to clean up before he presents it to us to be accepted. So his question was, does he still need to keep that 50,000, or can it be reduced, even though he's going to get a new company? My initial reaction was, no, you don't want to reduce it, but
no, you don't want to reduce it.
right,
Because you want to make sure you have the full amount that you need to finish whatever work doesn't get done if it doesn't get done.
yeah,
I mean, if he can at any point come in and ask for a partial reduction in the value of his bond, and it's at that point that I would either send your engineer or a Randall out, to take a look at it and see what work has to still be done.
Well, I haven't heard from him since, because I did suggest that to him. I said, well, if you know the work that has to be done, why don't you see what Randall has to say about what he thinks it might take? Give us a number to go by, but just don't ask us to reduce it.
Exactly. I mean, because your responsibility at the end of the day is making sure that road gets completed. And the only way you can really do that is if you have the cash in hand to be able to finish the work if the developer doesn't.
Right, right. Gotcha.
I mean, even dealing with performance bonds is not the best.
All right, thank you.
What's that, Larry? I'm sorry. Why is the performance bond not the best?
Because you're now dealing with a third-party company who may or may not agree with you in terms of what work has to be done, or whether it has to be done, or how much it's going to have to be done.
But if the performance bond is tied in, if the performance bond is tied in contractually to an estimate prepared by the engineer,
yeah,
doesn't that make it legally binding in terms of the value?
Your problem is when you want to call the bond saying the developer is in default. And that's usually where you get the rub. And most, and unfortunately, you might be dealing with a bonding company in Minneapolis.
Which is obviously the case 99.9 times. Either, they're out of North Dakota or somewhere out.
Exactly. So it's not like you're dealing with the local bank who has an interest in this and you have a relationship with and is interested in getting it done. I mean, there are some towns that will not work with performance bonds, the bonding company.
If you name the granitor or the granitee, I guess, or whatever term you want to use, as the town, doesn't that protect us in terms of we're the holder of that, I guess? I mean, or am I getting it confused with
Sure. And if you want to hire your lawyer to go after that bonding company to get them to consider the terms of that bond, that's up to you. All I can say is that pretty much universally speaking, performance or bonds, actual bonds with bonding companies is what most planning boards and most towns prefer not to work with because they're the most difficult and the most involved to get exercised.
But are we precluded from disallowing that as an option right now? I think that's in our bylaws, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, the developer gets the first choice.
Okay.
It's in the state law that the developer gets to, pick his preferred alternative for performance guarantee. And my take has always been that's fine to start off with, but once they start coming in to get that release or partial release, then you can start making them, go back and restructure that stuff to where it's to the town's advantage.
What would just for the sake of conversation, why would he want to get rid of the bonding company he's got and go to somebody else? Interest rate or something?
Well, he's not bonded right now. He just uses covenants for his properties.
Yeah. I mean, it could be that the first bonding company doesn't want to renew the bond.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He said he didn't want to do business with him anymore, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Whether that's true.
I mean, when we deal
Usually there's a story behind that.
Yeah, I bet there is. And we've done it. I've worked with a number with solar projects. And one of the things we would do is we would basically take the same process or the same format that the state uses, which is, if your bonding company is not going to review that bond, we want to be notified of it like 9 months ahead of time. Because it takes a long time for you to deal with the bonding company and draw upon that and call them in default and actually get your hands on the money to go in there and finish the work. And sometimes it's not even a matter of them giving you the money to finish the work. It's up to them, or they will hire another construction company to come in and finish the work.
Would it have anything to do with the length of his project because he got that extension? So I'm just guessing that bond now is about 12 years out, something like that.
I don't know. And most bonds are usually for like 3 years or 1 year.
Right.
So I would wonder.
What was the extension back then when they gave construction companies, what was it, 8 years? Was it an additional 8 years on top of when they started?
Well, they gave an extension for every permit.
Yeah. Right.
If you got a special permit, you got the extra years.
Yeah.
If you got a building permit, you got the extra years. If you got a wetlands permit, you got the extra years. But I'm pretty sure that most of those, that is expired by now.
Right. All right, thank you. So the reason I had Larry come on tonight, and again, it wasn't on the agenda, but on the same token, after our last meeting, we had reviewed the MS4 stormwater draft by PVPC, and it's going to be on the January docket for a public hearing. But in the meantime, Cindy made the edits that we had from the last meeting and then forwarded over to Larry for comment and review. So Larry wanted to just come on to make a couple of suggestions and comments on how he feels about the language and the procedure. So go ahead, Larry.
Okay, sure. I actually got 4 drafts or 4 versions of it from Cindy. I'm not sure exactly which is the final one, but there were similarities in all of them.
Now,
Well,
just a minute. Do you need her to bring that up, or are you just going to talk extemporaneously? Do you need to refer to any of the paragraphs, or?
I think at this point I'm just going to talk extemporaneously, and but Cindy may want to draw it, for her, bring it up. So if I ask her to
Larry,
refer to a particular section, she'll have it.
I'm just going to correct you real quickly. You didn't get 4 drafts. You got 2 drafts. There's 2 different documents. One's the regulations and one's the bylaws. And 2 drafts of each. So just to be clear on that, okay?
Fair enough. So let me start with just his history. Subdivisions and the subdivision control law has been around for a long time. And as you know, for you who've been on the planning board for a long time, subdivision plans included everything. It included storm drains, it included stormwater, it included water lines, it included sewer lines, included electrical, included the roadway construction, including the rights of way, included access and pavement depth and all of those things. And all of those, including stormwater, were already included as part of the subdivision approval and subdivision plan. In addition, under zoning, if you got a special permit and you were putting in a housing project or an apartment complex or putting in a strip mall or something like that, you also were required to submit plans. And those plans included a lot of things like parking and where the building was and access, pedestrian circulation and lighting and stormwater management and other utilities. So that was already included in those. Likewise with your wetlands permits. There are a lot of things that are involved in getting a wetlands permit, and one of those is, of course, stormwater management. So stormwater management was already a part of the review process and already a part of the requirements for what had to be submitted for a development plan. And then the state decided to, as they rightly needed to, decided to up the requirements for stormwater management, which just made a lot of sense. And it made a lot of sense in terms of standardizing it. So all the towns were doing the same things, and it just really worked out well. So they developed and passed their regulations that they wanted all the towns to adhere to, which required, various design considerations to be taken into consideration for stormwater management, et cetera. Did not necessarily require that it had to be a separate permit. It just had to make sure that when you were approving your subdivision plan and you were improving the stormwater portion of your subdivision plan, that you were making sure that the engineer who was designing it was incorporated those facets of it and the requirements of it that DEP wanted included in that. And so what we did, and many towns did, was they did not require a special stormwater permit, but they did have a stormwater management bylaw. And oftentimes what we would recommend is don't adopt that as a zoning bylaw, but adopt that as a town general bylaw. And so when the first model stormwater management bylaws came out, I think this looked to me like Southampton just adopted what PVPC did at that point and slapped it in and included it as part of the zoning bylaw. And as we have discussed numerous times, we had talked about why that is not a good idea, because once you put it in only your zoning bylaw, it only applies to things that zoning covers. And there are a lot of other projects out there that might not come to the planning board or might go to some other board, or might be by right, that do raise stormwater management issues that need to be addressed. And so typically how we would do it is we would have the stormwater management bylaw adopted as a town bylaw. And included in there would be all the design stuff, all the definitions, all the purpose of what you're trying to do, all of the performance criteria that you're putting in there. Because quite frankly, it shouldn't just apply to planning board projects. It should apply to all projects in town and should be enforced uniformly by all the other boards and commissions in town that issue permits for various types of development or development permitting. So what we would normally do is adopt that, as a town bylaw. And then for instance, when we got to the subdivision regulations and you got to the portion of the subdivision regulations that dealt with stormwater management, you would basically simply have something in there, do it like the general bylaw says to do it. It would require a separate permit. It would be included as part of your subdivision plan, as part of your subdivision application, as part of the subdivision fee, as part of the public hearing. But there really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to hold a separate permit just for that one facet of it, as opposed to folding it in and like you've always been up to that point and treated it as a general subdivision approval. It would be sort of like, yep.
How about residential though? How would you handle residential with not having a zoning bylaw that would fall under the general bylaw?
Well, there you go. So you have that general bylaw, and you would do the same thing with like the Zoning Board of Appeals or the Board of Health or the Conservation Commission. In their bylaws, they would again refer to, if you're dealing with stormwater management with one of our permits, do it like the general bylaw says. Which is very simple. And so you don't have to repeat it. You just have the general bylaw that applies to everybody. And that works out really well for projects that already need some other type of permit, like a special permit or a wetlands permit or a Board of Health permit. But then there are those projects that are permitted by right or don't require any other kind of permit at all. That's the one that you want to come in and have a stormwater management permit for, because nobody else is giving a permit for that or reviewing it for that. So that's when you're issuing a stormwater management permit. That's the kind of project that you need that separate permit for.
Now, would that be in the zoning bylaws though, or would it be still under general?
Everything in the meat of it is going to be the general bylaw. Everything in your subdivisions or your special permit requirements or your wetlands bylaw, or even, any town projects for Randall, you just, put a very simple thing in there that says, look at the stormwater management, do it like the bylaw says, but as part of this permit, it's folded into this permit. It's not a separate bylaw because it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all to have a subdivision where you have one permit where you're looking at everything: sidewalks, roadways, street trees, water, sanitary sewer, all of that, except for stormwater.
But isn't this a general bylaw we're looking to do right now anyways?
I'm not sure, because it doesn't.
That's what all the language has
been. It doesn't say where it's going to show up in your general bylaws, which it needs to. And it's not formatted. I don't believe it's formatted like your general bylaws are.
Okay, so this is good. No, right? I'm glad we're talking about this.
Yeah, am I missing something on that?
I'm looking at my information here. All the discussions. I'm looking at what the correspondence we have from Patty. It says stormwater bylaw.
Yes, that's correct.
Here's the language, if you want to bear with me a minute. Here's the language that Patty drew up for the public hearing.
Yeah.
The public hearing will cover the following: creating a new general bylaw for stormwater management and erosion and sediment control with associated regulations, and amending the zoning bylaw to remove entirely section 14 on erosion and sediment control for stormwater management. So it looks like she wants to eliminate the zoning one and put it in general, correct? By that wording?
But you still need to have something inserted into your zoning bylaw now that requires you to have your general bylaw apply to the zoning projects.
Mhm.
And
That makes sense, Larry. I think you need to link it back.
What?
You got to link it back.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It can be just a one or a two sentence thing, but you need to make that connection. But it just doesn't make sense having it would be like having your approval for the subdivision plan, and now a separate stormwater permit for the stormwater, and a separate sanitary sewer permit for the sanitary sewer, and a separate water line permit for the water line, and a separate permit, for the utilities and the sidewalks. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to remove stormwater from the overall subdivision permit when that's such an integral part of it.
I think we're all on the same page.
But Larry, so it sounds like once we get the language that goes into general bylaws, all these other bylaws we reference for those various circumstances, we reference the general bylaw. Is that correct?
That's correct. You need to go into each of those other bylaws and regulations you have in town and include in there that for stormwater management, see, the general bylaws and make sure, and that has to be incorporated in, or that the stormwater permit is folded in with that overlying permit. It just doesn't make any sense to have a separate public hearing, a separate application, a separate set of plans. And here what I'm looking at is, it was at one point, let's see, it's beyond definitions. And it talked about, I think it's applicability. These regulations shall apply throughout the town of Southampton. Prior to the issuance of any special permit, site plan approval, or development permit, for any proposed new development or redevelopment listed below, a stormwater management permit or a waiver from a stormwater management permit must be approved by the Southampton Planning Board. So this requires for every development type permit issued in town. As I read this would also apply to wetlands, an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. So why, if you required a wetlands permit from the Conservation Commission, why would the Planning Board be approving the stormwater management plan for that? When in fact, wouldn't you think it would be the Conservation Commission? And it's all
does the Conservation Commission's regulations correspond to the language that's in this particular
It says
bylaw?
any new development or development permit. Development permit is not defined.
So then,
It could be a Board of Health permit. It could be a highway permit from Randall. And I'm telling you, the reason you want to have this in your as a general bylaw is you want it to apply to your town projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you understand that a member of the Conservation Commission, a longstanding member, Art Lawrence, and Randall were a part of this entire development of all of this heretofore. So they liked it the way it is. So I don't know whether it's administratively cumbersome, but
they like it because I'm pretty sure they got spoon-fed a version of it and weren't told about the alternatives or that there's a better way to do it.
I think what Larry's trying to say is he's trying to link it to have teeth, because it's not we're not covering all our bases if we just approve this, because nowhere in the zoning is it going to say, that we need to link back to this or use this as the basis of any particular standard. I think what Larry's trying to say, correct me if I'm wrong, is we need to establish this as the written law for any type of permit that's applied in the town.
That is true. And I also am looking at simplifying it so you're not requiring multiple permits for the same thing.
All right, going
How do we do
forward
that?
then, going forward, knowing all this now as we do, and it does make sense to go into general, but how are we going to then, at the public hearing, going to modify what we have now? Because you claim you still want a section for stormwater in the zoning bylaws, or no?
What you would have in your zoning bylaw is, for instance, when you require a site plan
Yeah.
for like a multifamily development or something like that, or any kind of site plan, you would require, I'm assuming, you list in there what it is you want to be shown on that plan. And when you get to stormwater management, you just refer to your general bylaw.
Right.
It's just you don't require a separate and distinct permit for that.
No.
You don't require another application for that.
So my question is for all the other departments, like you can talk about Randall's department. When we bring
Where are you?
you know, it's where I get the best cell phone reception.
Oh, very good.
My question is, so when we bring this up for town to vote, do we mention that there will have to be this wording added to the bylaws of all these other departments as well? So it's all covered at once?
And in fact, you know, I think that's what Patty should be putting together for you as part of this project.
Yeah, because I hate to have to separate review for each and every single approval. It would be a big mess.
It just doesn't make practical sense to me at all.
I think that's probably going to fall on us when we're redoing the bylaws, because her project was time sensitive and it expired. Correct, Cindy?
That's my understanding, yes. Yep, I mean, you could bring her back, but you'd have to pay her.
Did you get what you wanted? I mean, the bylaws that I see don't even tell you where to put it. They don't tell you what section it is. I don't think it's formatted like the other bylaws.
Larry, this is why we pay you the big bucks.
You know what? That's up to you.
I think we just need, from an administrative end, I think we need to have this defined as how it's tied in to everything else.
Correct.
To Larry's point. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal. I think it's just a missing link to complete the process.
Can this be, do you think that this should be hammered out prior to the public hearing?
Well, that would be nice. I mean, it would be really nice if they came back and said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. This is, you know, section, whatever it is, section 22.5 of the general town bylaws, and this is where it's going. And it's been reformatted to fit the format of whatever your general bylaws are formatted. I mean, you know, one of the reasons why we're going through the zoning bylaw right now is because every frickin' section has its own different formatting.
Yeah.
There's no consistency to it. I'm not sure if your general town bylaws are like that or not, but you do, you know, hopefully, you know, want to have them all consistent.
John, are you familiar with the general town bylaws? Have they got a separate format of their own or a consistent one?
They're being reviewed and they're putting them in what they're calling a consistent format. They weren't in a consistent format before, but the bylaw committee is working on it.
And then it would be great if they could find out, you know, where in the general bylaws this needs to be plugged into, and then what is the format that you're adopting to make everything uniform.
So Paul, this is a question to you, Paul Demon. Could we consider asking Larry and Patty to put their heads together and come up with some consistency? They're the ones that have the expertise in either the various technical areas as well as the bylaw area, and you know, kind of separate from this meeting and prior to the public hearing. And I know that'll cost money.
Yeah, I was going to say, if, you know, you guys have run out of money, you know, I can't really do that. You know, for her.
Well, do we need two people, or is this something that one person can do?
why can't it be two people? Because Patty's
People
got,
have one.
I mean, if this is the way you want to do it, one person who knows what they're doing can do it like that. My assumption was, since this is what they were paid to do, and this is what their project was, that this would be some kind of a modification that they would make. So you're telling me, so you're telling me, Cindy, that after the public hearing, if the public hearing comes up with it, they want to see a bunch of changes, there's no ability to make those changes?
I'm not saying they can't make the changes. I'm saying that we would have to make the changes from my understanding. It's not that changes could be made for sure, but we no longer have Patty available or, her time to my understanding, her time has expired.
Right.
And she will come back, but it'll be an extension of the work. That is.
Could you, Larry, do this then and put as our consultant, because you're putting an independent eye on it, and I think that's proper in our part, because PVPC is, as you say, they developed it and that's the way they want to go with it. But we had a different set of eyes look at it, and this is what we came up with to try to make this suggestion. Could you, if you think it's better by putting that in writing to her as a suggestion, or a phone call as our independent consultant?
Well, I mean, if you don't want to pay her to do this, and if she's run out of hours, then I can work with you guys to try to make the adjustments that we need to make with it. I guess the only other question I had was relative to what they put together. I would like to know what parts of it, or how much of it, is what is specifically required under the MS4 permit, and what is it that's been added to it that they felt was extra, above and beyond, that they thought needed to be included.
So Larry?
So sorry, Paul, just a second. So Larry, I sent you the draft, which included her notes as to why it was added or why she felt. I don't know if you could see that. That was, there were two parts.
The PowerPoint, but what I would like to see, because I don't want to have to go back and go over the MS4 DEP regulations line by line.
Yeah.
Because right now she probably knows those better than I do.
Yeah.
What I would just like to know is what meets the standards, the minimum standards that DEP requires, and what is added on stuff.
This makes no sense that there'd be a third party involved in this. To me, it's a direct conversation, either via writing, email, etc., or telephone call with Patty, because she's apparently done this for several towns. She knows what the regulations are, or the changes, or the modifications are. There's two parts to this. There's the technical aspect, and then there's the administrative part that you pointed out. And so that's my idea, that you communicate directly with her.
I guess my response to that would be, until I got a chance, until you heard me speak tonight, you probably thought those were all honky-dory.
I did.
Yeah.
Actually, we focused on the administrative part. The rest of it was all way above our heads, in my head anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if I call Patty and Patty's out of hours, that makes me uncomfortable, because she's not being paid to do that.
Well, so she needs authorization to give more time to this.
Correct. And I understand. I worked there for like 7 years, so I know how it works. You got X number of dollars for the project. That X number of dollars translates to X number of hours. And boy, once those hours are up, you can't charge it off to anything else. You can't charge it off to them. So you either do it for free, which I would never ask her to do, or she needs extra, or you do it yourself.
Well, we're glad that John Martin's here, and he's got plenty of cash at the select board. So that's great. Great that you're here, John. And He nodded his head yes, so let's send the bill to select board.
From my perspective, I want it placed in the right position, general bylaws, whatever. I could personally care less about the technical aspects of it. I feel sorry for the people that have to abide by it, but
It's not much different than before. It's just lining up so certain components to be lined up with what we
I mean,
said.
if you adopt the general bylaw and you have it all put together, having every board and commission, figure out how they're going to link to that or not, isn't brain surgery.
Right.
It's not rocket science.
could you drop something on a recommendation without being overbearing with it?
You get $12.
I can come up with maybe like some sample wording.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to go through necessarily and rewrite the whole general bylaw.
No.
But the general bylaw, the bylaw and the regulations should all be under the general town bylaw. So, and Cindy, maybe you can make sure that that's formatted like that.
Now, what I think I'd like you to do is write those recommendations to the board, and then I'll forward it from us to her.
Okay.
And if she's not working on it, Ken probably is, but again, probably it'll be, I'm sorry.
You still have Ken under contract?
Well, PVPC is under contract, period, but right. He's our rep now, not Patty. Patty was just doing the stormwater.
So why can't we just use Patty for that then, if we have PVPC on general?
I'm sorry?
If we have PVPC on general terms, why can't we just have a different individual at PVPC?
Could. Yeah.
Good. This is probably something Ken could do.
She might, but wasn't Ken in on those meetings, Cindy, as well?
Yeah, well, he was in about 2 or 3 out of the 7 or 8, but only partially. But I will tell you, my experience with Ken is he has great knowledge in certain areas, but he defers to somebody like Patty when you talk about the technical aspect of this. So they can coordinate among the two of them. So if we have a contract, which I know we do with PVPC to be consultants to us, it's, you only pay them when you ask them to help you, right, Paul? I mean, it's not like a blanket contract. So go directly to Ken, who is the consultant to us, and point, after Larry does his draft, and then say, Ken, we need to know where we're going to go from here. If you need to, consult with Patty. And
hey,
then,
Cindy, I feel so much better now because you just, for the first time, said that Ken had to defer to Patty because some of this stuff he didn't understand. And now I don't feel so bad now anymore after all the stomping and running around they did.
Okay. Well, they seem to have a division of expertise, right? Now, I suspect Larry understands this, right?
That's one of the problems with PVPC, which is each of them is highly specialized.
Yes.
And I think Patty Gambarini is the nicest person I worked with when I was at PVPC. I love her. She's a terrific human being. Her area of expertise is stormwater management. Okay? She's not a town planner. And as you know, when you're dealing with these projects, stormwater management is very, very important, but there are a lot of other factors you have to take a look at also and balance. Ken actually had a couple of years' experience as a town planner.
That's right.
So I think he might understand the breadth of it and the need to make sure everything gets coordinated.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you a question? So when we use PVPC, like Ken, whose money are we spending? Is it the planning board's money or just the town's money for his hours?
It comes out of our account, Dan.
Oh, it comes out of the planning board's account. Okay, thank you. Just for my own education.
Yeah.
So I'm in agreement with what I just said. I'm in agreement with myself.
I'm glad. I'm not glad you're not going to contradict yourself.
No. So
I like where this is going, Cindy. This is good.
What's that, Paul?
I said, I like where this is going.
So Larry, I heard Paul Demon say to you, if you can put something in writing, you know, and then we can bump this back to our consultant, who's Ken, and then he can do whatever he has to do to, and I've had a lot of experience with Ken this year because he's been on a lot of projects that I've been working on. And while Patty's one of the nicest people in the world, so's Ken, in my opinion. So let them work it out. And then
No, Larry's right here.
and let that come back to us with what they work out.
Because at this point, I don't want to put that hearing off. I want to get this behind us. So if we can, I'm sure we can work this out between now and the hearing, and even if the hearing has to be continued to get a final draft, but whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And when we have this hearing, we need Larry, Ed Gibson, and Randall present.
Yeah.
Well, all the town departments will be notified. So
Yeah, well, they're going to hear from me too. They're going to have to show up because, because they were part of these meetings and they had a lot to say about stuff. So, and I think it's meant to be a cooperative effort. You know, it's not meant to be anything but that.
Yeah.
So, Larry, I knew you'd have a spin on this. No question in my mind that you'd have a way to look at this, which I think is valuable because of your background and your experience and your knowledge of PVPC.
Larry, you work for Fox News.
The election is not over.
He's on Newsmax now.
Don't say
Okay. Well, thank you, Larry, for your words of wisdom and your insight. I'll wait to hear from your letter between now and, well, not now and Christmas, but maybe a week after, so I can see if we can get an answer out of PVPC on it.
Larry, are you hanging around in the Northeast or are you going to warmer climes this winter?
Well, we hate it, but we don't dare leave.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, I feel like we're hostage.
You are.
And you are going to freeze this winter.
And I'm so not looking forward to tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Larry, and
Thanks, Cindy.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you and Barb.
You too. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
And that's pretty much it other than minutes. Everybody want to just do minutes?
I'd say
Now, I hope everybody reviewed them because I'm not going to put them up page by page. But if someone has an edit of any of those meetings, I'll certainly make note of it and correct it. But right now, I think I sent you starting with February 5th, but I noticed in my copies, we had already approved way back when, February 5th and February 19th. So the one I'm going to start with is February 25th, which was a joint meeting with the select board. Cindy and I were the only two from the board in attendance, but that had to do with the Master Plan Implementation Committee presentation that Ken Comia from PVPC gave regarding that DLTA contract that he was working on. And the rest is history on that now because it's complete and the survey is complete and whatever. So that was just a joint meeting. So do I have a motion to
I move to accept.
approve that?
Question. Can I approve minutes of meetings that happened before I was involved?
You weren't on the board at the time, Dan, so I think for all intents and purposes, you probably should abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Correct, John?
No, you don't have to be present at the meeting to approve.
But I mean, he wasn't a member of the board at that time.
Yeah, I don't think that's an issue really, but
Really?
to be safe, if he wants to stay off of it, you've got a quorum as it is, so.
Right, exactly. Do I have a second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next meeting was March 4th. There was a A&R, two A&Rs. There was a report for an informal discussion for property located at 76 Line Street. And then Cindy gave reports. We approved a warrant. There wasn't much on that docket. Does anybody have any corrections or deletions on March 4th? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
Second, Paul? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next meeting we had, there was a little bit of a lapse there because after March 4th, COVID hit us and we had several meetings that were canceled until we got into the Zoom format. So the next meeting, there was none in April. And the next meeting we had was May 6th. And there was an A&R for Jim Labrie, who was at the board at the time, that recused himself. We had a vote that the chair or vice chair would go forward and sign A&Rs rather than having 5 signatures on them. Building permits were approved. And there were reports of committees. Nothing major at this meeting. Do you have a motion or any corrections? Motion? Paul? Cindy, second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting after that was June 3rd. It was a public hearing for a residential stormwater application for James Labrie Jr., of which Jim Labrie, who was on the board at the time, recused himself. The permit was approved. Then we had building permits, an inquiry about scenic road designation, reports of committees. And I also asked the board to send the zoning application packet that Larry Smith drew up for us to be used by the building department for all applications going forward. And that was sent over to the select board. And that was about it. Any other corrections on that one? June 3rd. Motion?
Except as written.
Second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next meeting was July 8th. There was an A&R for Valley Road, and then there was another public hearing for a residential stormwater permit for Daniel and Rebecca Haska up on 101 Fulmer Road. And as you might recall in that one, the motion was to continue because the plans were incomplete, and they were asked to come back with a more definitive plan showing how they were going to mitigate conditions up there. There were building permits, a contract we signed with PVPC for fiscal year 21 services. Committee reports, warrants. Corrections, anyone?
Except as written.
Second? Paul, right?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next one, August 12th, and at that point, let's see. We had an A&R for the Ken Piper on Gun Road that Mark Reed presented. That was approved. There was building permits approved. There was a continuation of the Haska stormwater permit, and they submitted a revised site plan showing that the drainage and the swales on the site. Randall Kemp commented on that, and he was satisfied that Mr. Floric had the proper measures in place to contain the runoff going onto Fomer Road. The board conditioned also the approval of the 12-inch culvert installation and ongoing maintenance, ripraps to be installed on the inflow and outflow, and a check dam be placed in the southeast corner of the site. Public hearing was closed and it was subsequently approved. Also at that meeting, Cindy should recall this, the Ms4 Stormwater Presentation was made by Patty Gambarini when she gave her PowerPoint presentation to the board. And the expiration date on that contract of hers was June. So as you can see by our last few meetings, we have addressed that, and it's going to public hearing. Any other corrections on that particular meeting? August 12. Motion?
I'll accept it.
What's that, Dan? No? Paul?
I said it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Some of these I just sent you this afternoon. I don't know if you had a chance to look at them.
I did. I reviewed the ones from this afternoon. They're okay.
September 2nd meeting, that's when we welcomed our new member, Dan. Now you don't have to abstain anymore. Dan was welcomed to our September 2nd meeting, of which we had an A&R for Tom Labrie up on College Highway. We had another discussion about the stormwater. We had a High Street scenic road proposal regarding a scenic highway, and the board has no objection to it, but we'd like to know where we might get the costs to cover the butter costs for postage, because there's several residents there. And then building permits were approved. Motion to approve for any corrections? Motion?
I'll make a motion.
Dan, second. Cindy?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next meeting was September 16th, and that was probably our biggest meeting we've had in months. It was the public hearing regarding Volkan Polital's application for a marijuana dispensary in RMD at 15 College Highway. And Larry Smith was our point person on that, consulting. And I think we all agree that the application that was presented by Ezra Parsbach, who was the presenter for Volkan, did an outstanding job with that application and his presentation, and Larry concurred with that and complimented them on that application. And that pretty much took up that meeting. There was reports of committee, and also We had our election of officers. Unfortunately, I was named chairman again. Paul Fergal was voted vice chair, and that was approved. Is there any other comments you'd like to make on those minutes? Colin, motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 October 7th meeting. Because the marijuana dispensary was continued, Larry Smith wrote his conditions, and we wrote in the conditions into the application and a decision. And there were 17 conditions and 7 findings pertaining to the application. The fire and health departments were added to line 11 of that application. So the motion was made to close the public hearing, and then the motion did pass by a majority of those present, 4-0-0. We had reports of committees. We had appointment of our representatives. Cindy Palmer was going to be our representative to the Community Preservation Committee, and Dan LaValle to Pioneer Valley Planning. Any other corrections on that, October 7th?
Accept as written.
Go ahead.
I move to accept as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. October 13th, we just had a site visit. I had that posted. Actually, it was 2 dates, October 13th and October 20th. We met up at 32 High Street on an application from Greg Felton on a stormwater application permit. So the board went up there and spent time to look over the site so that we get a better idea of what has happened up there, which has been ongoing for a couple of years. So that one there took place. Do I have a motion on that?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
October 21st, we had a building permit that we approved for Heather Pellegrini on Quigley Road. And that was, on that same night, we had a public hearing for a residential stormwater permit for Fred Milke for 89 Pleasant Street. It was presented by Mark Reed. It was very straightforward, but there was a couple of conditions put on it that Keith requested to maintain the best practices and inspections and clean per the SWIP plan, and also to add a silk sack to the catch basin on the east side of the tracking pad. And that motion was made to close the public hearing and subsequently passed. Then we had a follow-up public hearing again for Greg Felton at 32 High Street. Unfortunately, the plans were very incomplete per the criteria outlined in section 14. So we sent him back to the drawing board because the applicant could not answer the questions. There was no engineer present to answer questions. So we asked to have the plans revised showing mitigation to the site. And that was continued to November 18th. Also, the board agreed to discuss edits at our December 2nd meeting of the Ms4 Stormwater Bylaw. Committee reports and warrants. Any other corrections on that meeting? Motion.
Make a motion.
Motion made. Dan. Second by Paul. All in favor? Aye.
I
Aye.
November 4th meeting. It was an A&R we approved for Carol Goulet at 130 Crooked Ledge Road. Also assigned a street address as well. Cindy gave committee reports. We had a reminder of a joint meeting with the select board on November 17th to discuss and hear the survey report on the master plan implementation committee by the consultant of PBPC, Ken Comia. Also, we were reminded of our discussion coming up on December 2nd for the stormwater, Ms4. We had a reminder of a joint meeting we were going to schedule with the Housing Authority on November 18th. And then we had a communication from John Furman regarding the Gill Farm paving schedule deadline that was looming. Any other corrections on November 4th? Motion.
Except as written.
second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then the November 17th meeting was the joint meeting with the select board. I did not take any notes, and it was recorded and the minutes were taken by the select board, but we were there. Motion, Cindy?
Except as written.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 And finally, November 18th, we had a continuation of a public hearing for Greg Felton on 32 High Street. However, he asked for an extension because the plans were still not complete. So we rescheduled that for January 6th to give him all the additional time he needed to come up with those revisions. We had a discussion with the Gill Farm people, with John Furman present from VHB, about the sub-base, how they missed their November 20th, or actually it was the November 13th deadline they missed. So they asked for an extension to the 20th. And if that didn't happen, they wanted the board to be notified. And then Mr. Furman cautioned them about the weather forecast, and Paul Fergal, our board member, also gave information regarding the regulations by Mass DOT and the specs there. We made a motion to extend that. And then that night we had a joint meeting with the Southampton Housing Authority and Chairman Jim Sini and some other board members. Larry Smith also sat in as our board consultant, as did Ryan Gielaher as a local developer. John Martin was there as well. And a discussion ensued with Mr. Sini asking the board and the Housing Authority to come up with ways that we could make the affordable housing zoning bylaw we have less onerous on developers, while perhaps easing the zoning bylaws to create more affordable options like small clusters, apartments, mixed use, trailer park, overlay districts, etc. Larry Smith, our consultant, outlined the do's and don'ts and why the present inclusionary zoning has been a failure statewide. Ryan Gielaher gave his perspective from a developer's side with costs of land and materials and labor and how you make a profit going forward in a situation like that. And most importantly, everybody echoed the lack of sewer infrastructure. It was agreed at the end of the meeting that we will continue these discussions, but we asked the Housing Authority to get some feedback and some consulting from Hilltown or Valley CDC, as well as Mass Housing Department, and go forward from there. Any corrections on that meeting?
Accepted.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, I thank you for your patience on that. Sorry I was so far behind. I have posted most of them on iTown Government, and now that these are approved, I'll post the rest of them. Other than that, Cindy, do you have any committee reports?
I have a couple things. Open space and recreation plan. It's dragged out a little bit, but there is a draft currently posted on the town website. Few emails back and forth recently, although it isn't reflected on this posting. We're looking at limiting how long that's going to be on the website, and I've heard up to the 31st of this year. I'm afraid the planning board should take a moment to read the draft and see if they approve it, because we need to, and I suspect at the next meeting, ask planning board to agree to support the open space and recreation plan. It's currently in draft, and it is gone to the state. There is a bit of a time lag on this from what I understand is terms of state approvals, but take the time to look on that if you could.
Was I correct in seeing how many pages were in that document?
It's very lengthy.
Was it 400 or 200?
Well, I don't know what you saw, but I'd have to go back and look. I don't know. It's very lengthy.
Wow.
Sorry. It's very long. And I hate to say it, but it's really just pretty much what was in the previous open space and recreation plan. There isn't very significant changes in that. So scroll quickly.
Question. Did you just say that you want us to vote on approval or of that at the next meeting in what you were saying?
The part of the processing requires that Select Board and Conservation Commission, and I think Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and probably Select Board will approve the acceptance of the open space and recreation plan.
Okay.
And the last I heard, it was going to be a few months before the state, who've already got the draft, will be able to accept it. It's very critical for a lot of reasons, but one of them is the application for more funding for, applications for, what am I trying to say?
You're looking for grant money, right?
Grant
Yes.
money. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's one thing. Thank you. If you can look at those. The second thing is, in terms of the open space committee, I've been talking to a few different landowners. One of them I brought up before. The land is owned on the Westhampton line, and it includes the old Edwards Road. And I asked the question, would the old Edwards Road ever be opened again to be open for Southampton? It stops right at the Westhampton line. And the answer was the lower part of that road is already privately owned. It's part of the Quigley Estates, the Pellegrini property. However, the landowners asked a question. What if they wanted to have like one house built on their land, accessed from Westhampton Edwards Road? Would that be allowed? Have you got the picture there?
So no. If it's on Southampton right away, no. I mean, no. Because number one, emergency services, easement access to the private road. I mean, that gets into a slew of legal challenges that I don't think anybody wants to touch.
Yeah, the frontage would have to be in Southampton for that to happen. The roadway frontage.
It would Okay, the road would not be in Southampton. The frontage of the property would be. But I knew that for the subdivision, but this is just for like one lot. And if it's not.
Unless the person has an agreement with the particular private owner to provide an easement of access, then, that's allowed. But that's beyond our pay grade. I think this is a legal question that needs to probably be answered by somebody in the town, because if you grant access, I would imagine that opens up emergency access and other town personnel to be able to use that easement.
Yeah, you're paying taxes in one town and using another. I don't know.
Okay.
No, it is in Southampton. It's just you're using a private road that is not town maintained to access. So I guess the point is there has to be some sort of legal agreement on the private way for access.
Well, it wouldn't be private, Paul. It would be a West Hampton road. It's a West Hampton. The road is open at the West Hampton line.
But you said that there's one section of it that is private.
Yeah, but that won't be accessed at all. So this is
what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, even if it's in West Hampton, access through West Hampton. So this is where the emergency services issue comes into play.
Right. Okay. I don't think it's possible either. I told them I would ask the question. I honestly don't think the landowners really want to do it. They really want to just conserve this property. But I just said I'd ask, but I'm going to give them the same answer. It's
but like anything else, if they wanted a real estate attorney to research, it's going to cost them to find out exactly what they could do and what they can't do.
Okay.
We're not giving legal advice here either.
Paul, Can I just say something quick? We had something like this happen on the Westfield Southampton side a number of years ago, where they wanted to develop Southampton and they wanted to have access in through Westfield. And what Paul Fergal was saying, I think, is what ended up happening is who's responsible for the emergency services. And if it's in Southampton land, we're responsible for it. So did they have to go all the way around into, say, Westfield to get to Southampton? It caused a whole bunch of issues. And as I remember, it was denied and they had to get access through the town, our town, rather than going around through Westfield.
I do think we have some grandfathered properties on Mountain Road, which come in from Holyoke. The homes are actually in Southampton, but the road is a Holyoke road.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. Grandfathered, long time.
That was grandfathered, yeah. Okay, thank you. Just thought I'd ask.
Fire, ambulance, and highway all had issues with the other one with Westfield, Southampton side.
Yeah, okay. All right, and the other thing is just to let you know that the Open Space Committee had a proposal to do an educational project regarding the Barnes Aquifer and having landowners understand the importance of, following the rules and where the Barnes Aquifer is, et cetera. We went to the Water Commissioners meeting, and they thought that was a fabulous idea. We are going to get some short-term monies through Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. It's called the LTA. Ed has managed the whole thing, and that's all coming together, and it's, all in line of educating landowners about, maintaining lands, the health of our citizens, et cetera. So that you'll be seeing a little more on that. That's just underway right now. I guess that's it for me.
Dan, anything from your side?
Yeah, I sent out before the meeting. The Pioneer Valley Planning Commission had their meeting to talk about their top 10 resolves for the year. So I sent those over. I can read through the top 10 list real quick. Work with legislators and public administrators and state, federal level to inform and advocate on policies and programs that benefit the Pioneer Valley residents, focusing on championing smart policy, increased funding and transportation, and community development. Focus will be continued to assist our member municipalities in a myriad of challenges. So it just sounds like a broadly stroked goal. work with municipalities, state agencies for education outreach activities, and ensure the 2020 Census Bureau results are full and accurate count of Pioneer Valley residents. They had some concern about the 2020 census, so that's what they were talking about. Accelerate region-wide efforts to enhance climate action strategies and projects to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Champion the need for multiple modes of transportation in the Pioneer Valley, including passenger rail service, the Valley Flyer, the mentioned, participate in the DOT's East-West Rail Study. So a lot of talk about trains and better bicycle access, looks like in the next one. Working with member communities to address ongoing diverse housing needs in the region. So it sounded like Southampton may not be the only town in the valley that is looking into ways for addressing the affordable housing issues. Support collaboration among the members, collaborate with the Massachusetts Association of Regional Planning, integrate more climate resilience considerations. They're interested in historic preservation and strategic planning process to collectively guide the Valley's Commission in its work and its member communities. So that was their suggested list. They asked if any members had any suggestions to it, so obviously I had to speak up because the one thing I saw that was missing from all of this is mention of something Cindy kind of just mentioned is talk about our water. There was no mention of protecting our water resources in the valley. So the other towns, the other representatives from the other towns all seem to champion and pick up and say, yeah, why isn't that on there? So I wouldn't be surprised if this list is updated to include something along the lines of looking at aquifer protection or water purity to just protect our drinking water. So that's the takeaway from that Pioneer Valley Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? All set? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Hey, Paul, before you do that, can I just throw a thought out to you?
Go ahead.
We were talking about performance bonds before. And when I was working for the state, all the construction went through one of my areas, and there was performance bonds on all of them. And there are issues with trying to get an insurance company to perform. But one of the things we did is that we made it mandatory that any performance bond had to be through a Massachusetts registered company, so we could avoid that Minnesota type of example. So if you did that, you'd be dealing with somebody in Massachusetts, and you'd have the teeth to go back to them if there was an issue.
So performance bond from a registered Massachusetts?
Yeah, Massachusetts registered firm.
So that would be like a bonding firm, you mean?
It could be an insurance company. Anybody that does performance bonds. And, performance bonds is just X amount of dollars per thousand. It's an insurance policy, really.
So that's a good point. Thanks for that information. That we could probably, in revising the bylaws, we could include that on the revision. Good. Yep. Anyone else? We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Well, everybody have safe and happy holidays and Merry Christmas with your family and friends, and stay well.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for all your hard work, everybody. This is we're all volunteers, right? Have we said that before?
It's time to meet. It's time to go to Lopa Opa, right?
Let's
go.
Just another part-time job, Cindy.
Okay.
Take care, everybody.
Right, guys.
Hey, good night.
Good night.